I love LiDAR. It's like one of those things I get to do at night when nothing else is happening. I go play with 20,000 once a week.
All right, so we'll stick with the theme of LiDAR. And what I'll talk about is more what do we do with all the point cloud and all the data that's getting collected.
Cancel something.
So I'll acknowledge some of my colleagues that are in the room, so Jerry Newton, I should hide his affiliation. Bill Hargrove from Forest Service in the back, and Forrest Hoffman from Water Island. I'm at Oak Ridge. So this work is looking at more ecological use or application for some of these LiDAR data sets. The work is right here in our backyard in Smoky, Smoky Mountain National Park, and so everything we've done was using open source, and I'll try to highlight those aspects of the work. So just an introduction for Smokies, and I don't really have to tell the crowd here. So it's one of the most visited national park, and that's why we were trying to use these rich LiDAR data sets that we had available to us and try to do a little bit more detailed analysis. The park is, of course, park in Tennessee and North Carolina, and I'll come back to it, why that's important and how that becomes a complicated problem for us when we start doing this analysis. So our main interest was to understand the ecological diversity and within the national park for the purposes of looking at both plant diversity and the habitats for animals and birds and so on. There are lots of reasons why we want to do this. Forest health management and the folks that I work with in Forest Service, they are primarily interested in the forest disturbance mapping, trying to understand what's going on and how well the forests are doing across, nationally, and because they are based in Asheville, North Carolina, they are primarily interested in the eastern forest. The other aspect was to be able to use this idea of, that we just discussed, the idea of being able to do repeat LiDAR flights and collect LiDAR repeated measurements, and then idea that over a period of time can we do a better tracking and how forest structure in these national parks are changing over time because of various different stresses. How that will impact plant and the wildlife and the biodiversity in the park, and then aid in forest management and planning and decisions. And I just highlighted a couple of research articles that we looked at where how different ways people have been using some of the information about the forest structure, which is one of the main goals for this particular work. Both look at the structure and the composition of the vegetation. And there's this second one that I have up there is looking at the cost structure model, so the distance calculation whenever someone wants to walk through these forests. And I think that question of 911, for example, is if you have a better idea of what the vegetation looks like, and if you have to walk through those shrubs and bushes and between the trees, then you want to know what they look like under the forest canopy. And can we get to that using some of these rich data sets? And this effort tries to look at those questions. So I have a long list of objectives, and the ones at the bottom, the number 3 and 4, is something that we haven't really done. The first 2 is something that we have looked at fairly in detail. So one of the common way to look at forest and vegetation using LiDAR is to derive canopy height models. And because LiDAR data sets are fairly complicated, fairly large in size, they're difficult to work with at times. And people try to derive these LiDAR-based metrics for vegetation. And what we want to do in our work, we wanted to look at all the point cloud data sets and try to use these 3-dimensional structure that we are able to get from these LiDAR returns. So we wanted to look at that and characterize it We want to look at both overstory of the vegetation as well as the understory and the dark part. And then we want to understand how these things are changing, what's the impact of topographic and climate variability and the gradients within the park. And just to get an idea of overall landscape scale, understanding of the of the whole park and the vegetation in the park that we can get from these data sets. So LiDAR 101 on my slide is essentially trying to get to how do we take LiDAR point cloud and get to the structure. So the idea that different type of vegetation, this is multiple return LiDAR. So LiDAR returns that we are getting is just like you saw in the last talk from Paul. So you're getting these LiDAR returns at every different locations, all the different locations or of a height within the forest canopy. And the idea that different type of forests will have different structures, and that structure will be captured by these high density multiple return LiDAR. So that's just a cartoon showing you these structures, how they will change, and how they look different based on the multiple return LiDAR deciduous versus conifers versus a complex forest. And what we want to do is go with this histogram. Essentially, this is what we are trying to build with our point cloud that we have. This density map and vertical structure that will give us an idea of what that structure and along from the ground all the way to the top of the canopy looks like. And if you understand what the canopy structure is, that starts to give us an idea of what that forest type may be. So the source data for our LiDAR is again for Tennessee Park. This was a USGS collected data set that was done in 2011. Again, and this was done by a group at University of Georgia. So we had data available from Tennessee side from that one particular agency. Everything was in UTM with the units of meters. North Carolina, we go all the way back to 2005 when the North Carolina did the first the full statewide floodplain under the NC floodplain mapping program. And that was a lower quality data, so a bit older with lower point density, but that was done in state plain with the units of feet. That's makes a whole complication for being able to do something that goes across the state lines, and you want to be able to put the two data sets that are different quality, they have different projections, they have different resolutions together. So it took us a couple of iterations. All my data sets has a file, probably has a version 3 and version 4, because we did entire thing like multiple times. So this is the just the total number of LiDAR point clouds that I'm looking at. I'm using a 30-meter pixel so that it matches the Landsat and all the other NLCD pixels at 30-meter resolution, and I'm calculating number of point returns that I have in every given pixel. Huge difference between Tennessee and North Carolina just because they were collected at different times, they used different technology. So the data quality was different. So if you just take the data and do anything with it, it's going to be your map with all the analysis will look different on two sides of this the state line. But everything we've done, because we went through the process of trying to figure out and do some homogenization in our approach, on our maps you will not see a state line. You won't see a state line. So just to quickly run through what we've been doing, and this is, I only have a couple of bullets just to go through, quickly run through our method. So we did this in a very process parallel fashion. So all the alias files comes in a small chunks. So the idea was that if it was a single large file, then it's a complicated problem. So we lay out the entire part in memory at a 30-meter pixel resolution, and then we process each file individually in parallel. And this is simple multi-threading that's being done in Python, and we process it all and just drop it in all individual bins. Everyone knows where their piece of data that they're processing belongs. So we can do it in a very computationally efficient fashion. And so everything is done in Python. We are using LastPy module in Python to work with the LAS. Couldn't figure out how to use ZLAS. I remember looking at it once because a student had asked me some questions, and Doug tells me that there's a way to convert it, but that's in Windows, and I don't use Windows.
Well, just maybe you can use it in wine.
So the other thing we did is we wanted to do a correction. So we are in a very topographically complex area, so we do have to do a ground correction for all these data sets to get the actual tree height, not the DSM is going to give you the desktop surface. We want to get we were interested in absolute height of the canopy. So we had a 3-meter DM available to us, and this was prepared by USGS National Park Service right when they did this data collection, and we used that to do our corrections. And then we went through several other corrections, like Doug just mentioned, that not all the loss return you get may not actually be from the ground. There's so much noise in the ground clutter, and so you have to actually process all those out. And we try to implement that, and that's why it took us like 5 different iterations. And there are errors, there are anomalously high value because of aerosols and flying birds or aliens or whatever that is. And the same thing with the low points. I mean, there are lots and lots of noise in the data, and you have to be very careful to correct them all, otherwise you will have errors, and the overall analysis won't be accurate. So we did this everything in vertical direction. We went for a 1 meter bin, and we went till 75 meters because there are no top trees taller than 75 meters in the context. And at a 30-meter resolution. So within that 30-meter resolution pixel, we are taking all the point cloud that we have available to us, and I'm building that density plot that I showed you in a couple of slides ago. And that's how we're trying to do this analysis. And again, we made some corrections for low returns and so on. So this is just an illustration of this. Is just one point on the top left. We are looking at just a digital elevation model. So this is the DEM at 3-meter resolution, and I've just picked a pixel. And what I am showing you on the right side on top is the raw point cloud. And as you can see, it's actually everything is on this little bit on the hill. So we really have to apply some sort of ground correction. And after we could do a correction, this is what we end up with, because everything has been corrected to the ground elevation. And then based on that, we build this density. So the idea is that based on, there are lots and lots of this is close to the ground, so there's a little bit of high density understory is possible, or there can also be some noise in the data. But now we have a look at that 30-meter pixel, what the entire canopy looks like. So we know that it's not just one single really tall tree with nothing growing underneath it. There is something that's growing under that tree as well, those tree canopy as well. And that's the benefit of what we can get when we do a leaf off flight. So based on that, we applied, and I skipped a whole bunch of methods here, but we took all that data and we performed, we processed it for both sides of the state line, all the data sets, and then we applied unsupervised classification. And when we do that unsupervised classification, we identify what are those, some X number of unique canopy structures that we can identify within the pond. And that's the 30 sites we're looking at. And it goes all the way from really, really tall trees to some places where everything is actually really, really short. And that's maybe because we are on the top of the mountain, and there's not really, things are not really growing as much. Versus there are cases where, there may be a significantly high understory vegetation that we may have a little bit of bump that we see. And it starts to give us an idea of what that structure looks like. So, and then we can start to classify them separately and start to dig a little bit deeper. And just to point out some of the color scheme that we've been using, so we took that, we did a principal component analysis on this entire data. And we said, okay, well, the low canopies, just for illustration when we are creating these maps so that we can actually visually understand it without looking at all the numbers behind it. So low canopies, we are assigning that the red color, and the medium in that height range of blue color, and then in the taller it's a green. In this map, if if you remember that, again, the green was tall, the medium sort of height range was in blue, and then the really low was in the red. And so this is the entire map for the entire national park, and you can start to see. So again, if you follow the state line or Appalachian Trail, you can start to see these bluish, purplish color, because it's a combination of fairly low stature vegetation at high elevation in the area. As you start to go down at the middle elevation in the national park, you get these really tall vegetation. And this map starts to give us an idea. And even without looking at actual numbers behind it, we can start to, at 30-meter resolution, we can start to see what the vegetation structure looks like across the national park. And clear difference between North Carolina and Tennessee, because the vegetation is a little bit more complex when it comes to the Tennessee section of the park. Just the overall complexity, and that's everything is being driven by topography and the climate gradients that we experience. We can generate the canopy height models. Again, the canopy height models will start to reflect what topography in the park looks like. Low height vegetations at the top of the at a higher elevation, the vegetations are a little bit. And again, there's an interesting aspect differences as well that we start to experience. And I have a couple of more plots later on that I'll show how to summarize some of that information that you can get from these high resolution maps. Again, so the idea was to take these hundreds of gigabytes of data. It's just not really too bad for LiDAR. It can be worse, especially because we were limiting ourselves to just the national park. But thought to take that and get down to information that we want, that we are interested in from ecological perspective. So just a couple of examples that we wanted to make sure that we zoom in and just look with our own eyes and the places that we have visited and make sure that it kind of looks what we would expect it to look or not. So this is just a Google Earth zoom in at Zone and Andrews Ball, and you can start to see high elevation areas that have low. And this is the canopy height product that we are looking at in a higher elevation. In the park, we have low vegetation. It start to go down, especially with the south-facing slopes. You see significantly taller vegetations, and you can start to see these patterns that emerge. Again, this is vegetation structure map. So this is the structural classification through that. Again, red, lots of red shades that will appear at Stone and these high elevation areas, because if you remember the red, we were assigning a low vegetation, low height vegetation types, red color scheme. So some of those patterns starts to emerge. Again, case scope was easy because it's flat. So if you don't get it right, then messed up. So that's we clearly identified that. But then you can see these complex patterns, just the structural pattern that starts to emerge that you can see from LiDAR. And this is the LiDAR, this is the older LiDAR, and some of the new LiDAR will actually give us a better view. So then we wanted to also look at what's happening in the understory. And that understory is really important. For Park Service, for example, we talk to folks in the Park Service a lot. And one thing they want to know is where can they actually go and what are the plots that they can actually visit. So they have to have someone hike through some of these areas. And so they really want to know. You can actually, or 911, you really want to know how dense is the understory. Because if you're just looking from the top, any satellite image will only give you what you can see from the top. You cannot see what's inside, but LiDAR is one way to actually be able to see the understory. You can start to see those densities, the understory densities, and that gives you a better idea of what your understory vegetation looks like. So our interest is on the ecological side. So the biomass, there are areas where the vegetation is fairly short in terms of the height, but there's a very dense understory, so there's a lot of biomass that's there. Or when you are interested in fires, and that's what is going to burn. Now that's what burned in the fire that happened 2 years ago. It was understory fire and regions of significantly dense understory vegetation. And some similar schemes that this is just looking at the understories. This map is showing you only what the understory looks like, and it has a very different pattern than what we see in the full canopy. And so that's what we wanted to get down to and start to understand what the overall canopy, what the understory looks like. What those patterns are. Again, we'll go back to chimney tops and Mount LeConte area. And this is just a high resolution rapid eye. And as you can see, that the maximum canopy height is low, but the understory vegetation, you can start to see the very, very dense understory that we find in some of these regions. And so what we try to do calculate is the total canopy, what fraction of the total biomass of in the vegetation is actually just within the understory, and that starts to give us an idea of the density. So some of those patterns are of interest for multiple regions, areas where we see significant amount of rhododendron or mountain laurel. And so we did this in a fairly high resolution, at a 30-meter resolution way. And what we wanted to do is then take a step back and look at the entire park and say, okay, so what does it tell us about the landscape scale patterns? So this idea of what I'm calling this vertical mountain. So I want one image, one simple figure that will show me what the patterns across the entire park looks like, so that we understand the landscape scale patterns. So I don't want to go look at just Klingman Dome or Cape's Cove, or just there are lots of different peaks. So we wanted to capture that variability across the topographic gradient. So in the image, in the fix on the plots I'll show you. So in the radial direction, I'm trying to capture the elevation. So, and then on the circumference, I'm trying to capture the aspect. So let me just pull up this map. So from outside of this circular plot to the center, elevation is increasing. So outside is about 200 meter, and then in the middle I'm going up to 2,000 or so. So as you go in, just think of just one single mountain that I can create. Only if I could do it in 3D, that would be so cool. But I want to just do that, and then from it's north going out the south all the way around. So that gives us an idea of the aspect and for what the elevation looks like. And now I want to put on top of it where the different vegetations are, or the dominant vegetations are. So now we can see at very, very high resolution, we see dominant spruce fir forest, and everyone in this room probably has hiked up the high elevation areas in the park, and that's where we see spruce fir. Very, very few area spots. You start to come down at the middle elevation, so you see northern hardwood, mountain cove. Again, it has a preference for being on the north-facing slopes. And then as we go at different slope and aspect across the national park, we see a preference for different dominant forest types. Not to say that it's the only forest type, but it's the dominant forest type. And on the right side, I'm showing you what that dominance looks like. Many times it's possible that it will only 40%, but if the diversity is very high, that will be considered dominant in the way I'm defining it. So let's look at the diversity, and as you can see, the mid slopes, and this is a very scattered looking map, but a diversity of trees. So blue is low diversity on the image on the left, and as the red is a high diversity. At the higher elevation, there are very specialized species that grows. So we see less diversity in terms of, this is diversity in terms of vegetation types and diversity in terms of forest structures as well. So as we go at higher elevations, there are really less and less diversity, but at the mid slopes, there's significantly higher diversity. And I wanted to point out the area on the similar way, because in the national park, because on the front, when we almost are getting out of the national park, there's a very little bit of area in these low elevations. So that kind of tends to skew the map. So it's important to understand that most of the park is actually in this elevation band. And very, very little bit of arc that's at the bottom where that low elevation areas. But it starts to give us an idea of what the distribution looks like. Again, we can start to look at all these other data products and try to summarize it, what these patterns are across the entire forest. And some of these patterns will start to emerge where you can see, especially elevation and slope, there are some preferences or preferential preference for different forest types at a particular elevation or a particular slope. So again, same similar thing. We can look at our understory vegetation, and so combined, just to summarize, we've done this work to try to take these high resolution data set and try to know what kind of ecological understanding we can get from these high resolution data set. What can we learn from these detailed LiDAR plots that LiDAR data that we have available to us. And there's lots of new LiDAR efforts that are going on. NSF did, and their neon flights recently, and we're trying to go back and look at it at least for overlapping areas and see from 2005 to 2011 to some of the data sets that were collected in 2017 and the last 7-8 years. Have we seen any significant structural changes? And probably we'll see some hemlocks dying and maybe having an impact on overall structural composition within the forest as well. So, and since it was an open source kind of focused meeting, I wanted to highlight that. So all the data sets that we use were coming from USGS and National Park Service, so they should all be available publicly in one form or the other. All the LiDAR data processing and everything that we did was done in Python. It was a custom code before GRASS 7 came along with all these new LiDAR-related functionalities. And I think when we started to do this, it didn't exist, but over time it has come along a lot, and some of the work that was done at NC State makes all my custom code writing useless, but I don't think I have to do it. I already did it. And the benefit is I can do it in parallel. In parallel, so I can repeat. It took me a long time to do it all, but now I can do it all in 20 minutes. Thereabouts. For 20 minutes I can do it all. So our unsupervised classification was written in C, and we used MPI for distributed parallelism. All the geospatial analysis and all the blocks that you've seen, everything was done GDL, GIS, GRASS GIS, QGIS. I'm not good at QGIS. I use it just to make pretty block picture. It does better job than GRASS GIS. So I just open all the GRASS map sets and QGIS to make my plots and Python. And then we are, my slides has touched the Windows system for the first time. So it tainted a little bit, but otherwise, we don't use, at least in our team, we do not use anything but Linux or anything but open source software. So I prepared everything in LaTeX and Beamer, and everything that I presented. The data sets are, so we had a paper a couple of years ago, and IEEE's data mining conference, and we have another one in the works based on some of the more work that we have done. And the data sets, that all the data products that I talked about is available publicly on ORMTAC. That's all I had. Thank you.
I keep just adding more. What's part 2?
So the next round is going to be, so we want to do entire North Carolina. And Doug has been collecting all the data, and one of these days, once we have it all, we did North Carolina once. The data was so bad.
Quality challenged.
But quality challenge. So we did Western North Carolina with the phase 3 data from the last time phase 3 data, and that worked pretty well for us. So now that North Carolina is collecting data sets, and again, we'll have similar challenges, even though everything was collected in the last 2 years, but they are all different technologies, different point densities, but I think we have figured out at least some way to address those differences, so I think we should be able to do it. So yeah, so our next plan is to all of North Carolina. And for Smokies, we're trying to do some more work, trying to get differences using NSF,
Change detection, especially like post fire
Yeah.
and other events, looking for habitat.
Yeah, that was something that just occurred to me because the talk that Paul just gave, he said he collected the LiDAR data in East Tennessee and then included the Smoky Mountains, right?
Yes.
So I'm wondering if this were redone, if those data sets could be used.
Yes.
They might be able to get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially combined with newer stuff from North Carolina.
Yeah, and then we do plan to actually tap into some of the newer data sets becoming available.
The state forester would love to have it statewide, right? That would be awesome.
Yeah, we went to a place where we can actually find all the data. So, yeah. But yes.
I've used multi-processing on Untitled before. Joe, can you use that as a result of work you've already done, or did you start with that just because of the problem that was required to be solved? And kind of the second part of that, like, is there a way for you to distribute that processing process for machines that would help?
Yes. We most of the time, we rarely write shared memory codes in general because it doesn't scale. So I think that's in general, we tend to write more distributed memory. So that's why most of the work we do is using MPI. In this particular case, because we were just focusing, this work was focused on Smokies, we had enough memory on a single node and enough code on a single node that I can do it. If I can do it in 20 minutes, I didn't feel the need to go beyond. But yes, it absolutely can be done, and for some of the work that we are doing for the entire state, we'll have to go do that. Multiprocessing, there are multiple ways to do multi-threading in Python, and I think we use multiprocessing because the first thing we decided to use, and we've used it for that for some other work before. I think it's a file parallel operation. It's actually straightforward. It's not really complicated. I don't think any multi-threading module will actually do the job. As long as you lay out, do your memory management right, and as long as your processes know where to write and not overlap and override on each other, top of each other.
This may not pertain to you, but I know they do a lot of LiDAR flying in the wintertime.
Yeah.
But could this be utilized for like summertime LiDAR flying where they could fly over the Smoky Mountains and see what the beetle devastation to the trees has done? Could that, is it pinpoint enough that it would like show, you drive through the Smoky Mountains, all these trees are dead from that beetle eating the tree. So by using LiDAR, could it go over and see, okay, these areas are really hit hardest?
So in fact, for some of that, LiDAR probably is not even needed. I think we can do all that with satellite-based, satellite remote sensing. So some of the new high resolution. So Bill Hargrove here in the back. That's is focused.
Yeah, we've done some mapping of the hemlock woolly adelgid and the hemlock glosses,
Right.
just with standard data sets. You don't need LiDAR for that.
So it'd be amazing.
And then there are some commercial satellite products that are available that will give you a really good resolution even to get to the individual tree count. They're harder to work with. There are a lot of data, but it does provide a resolution to be able to get to that.